up, gamers? Today on Dice and Dragons, we are finally jumping into the world of Legendary. Now, we're both big fans of the MCU, as those of you that have watched some of our other videos know, and if you can't tell, well, I'm wearing it right now. So this is Legendary Marvel Studios, the first 10 years, and this is phase 1, meaning that you're going to get a lot of the content up to the first Avengers movie. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch of expansions that are going to fully flesh out all of phase 1. The primary difference with this version of the game and the comic version of the game that's been out for a while is there is one extra mastermind in terms of the Ironmonger, and this uses movie stills. Now, this is a cooperative deck building game where you're trying to beat the mastermind. There's also a competitive element because, as we all know, there's only one Earth's mightiest hero, and who's that going to be? Well, that's up for the players to decide. Now I'll toss it over to Julie, who will tell you more about the game itself.
It's a 1 to 5 player game that plays in about 30 to 60 minutes. Recommended ages are 14 and above. Playing with an adult probably could get away with somebody a little bit younger as well.
Yeah, the main thing is understanding how to combo cards. So if you've got younger children that don't understand that type of game mechanic, then you probably want to wait till they're a little bit older. Well, that being said, we're going to dive into it. The game is published by Upper Deck and designed by Devin Lowe, and we'll teach you guys how to play. So we're going to grab our drinks, grab our buddy, or maybe our favorite Avenger in this case, and take it to the table.
I'm looking forward to seeing stills of Thor.
I know he's your favorite Avenger. I wish Black Panther was in here, but we haven't got the Wakanda expansion yet. Hopefully soon. But that's more like phase 3, so maybe not soon. Now we're going to take a look at the components that you get in Legendary Marvel Studios, the first 10 years, phase 1. So as I said before, this takes you really up to the Avengers in terms of content and characters. But we'll take a look at what we get in the box. As you guys can see from our second camera, there is a lot of cards. We're not going to go through all of them. We will take a closer look at henchmen, villains, and some of the heroes after this, and then we'll teach you guys how to play the game. Now let's break down these components quickly. We've got the playmat, which then gives us our area to place our villain cards, the HQ where we'll recruit our heroes, our nice big pile for decks, and then that area for discards as well as the villain. Now, of course, we've got the rule book, which has, as always, not always, most rule books do, but many don't, a nice quick reference guide on the back. Here we've got the 3 masterminds for the game. Now you notice that each mastermind has their primary card, and then there are 4 tactic cards. You need to defeat the tactic cards, essentially, to beat the mastermind and win the game. We've got the Masterstrikes and the Scheme Twists over there. Now those cards trigger things with either the scheme, and you'll find information on Scheme Twists depending on what scheme you're playing, and the Masterstrikes are related to the Masterminds. Now here we've got the different villain sets, and as you'll notice, the villain sets have 4 cards each out. That's because there are 4 different cards per villain set. And when you look at the henchmen, well, there's just 1 of each henchman. Now we'll quickly break down what the villains you get in this game. We have the Chitauri. We've got the Hydra. The Iron Foes, which include the 10 Rings, as well as characters like Whiplash. Now I'll just slide Whiplash out right there so you can see. We get a little bit of variety in that one. We then have the enemies of Asgard, including the Frost Giants. And not sure how Hawkeye got in there, but I guess since he works for Loki, he does count as an enemy of Asgard. We have the Gamma Hunters, which range from Abomination to, of course, Lieutenant General Everett Thunderbolt Ross. Actually, it's not Everett Roth, it's just Thunderbolt Ross. I'm getting confused with the Black Panther character. Sorry about that. Then we've got the 4 different henchman groups, the Hydra Pilots, Hydra Spies, 10 Rings Fanatics, and the Hammer Drone Army. Now these are the villains that will be in the game working with the mastermind that your heroes will be trying to defeat. Now we've got 5 different types of innocent bystanders. Now I didn't show it, but this bystander here is your common one. And you notice there is no text at the bottom. The reason why is that Pepper Potts, Happy Hogan, Jane Foster, and Peggy Carter each have something that happens when you rescue them, meaning that it's better for your heroes to rescue them versus your standard bystander. Now here we've got our shield cards. Now you will be starting with the shield agent and the shield trooper. You can see here what determines the buying power, and I'll pick up the card. You'll see their buying power right there. And here is where you will see the attack power or the fight power, which is 1. These are going to be the cards that form your starting deck. The shield officer, represented by Maria Hill, is the card that you're going to be recruiting as you play the game. And then here we've got the wounds, and I'll just bring them a little bit closer. The wounds are the cards that get added to your deck when you take damage, and they really weaken your ability to fight. Now we're going to quickly look at all the heroes. I'm going to bring them a little bit closer just so you can see all of their cards. And we'll start with Iron Man. You notice that the heroes actually have 4 cards. The one I want to focus on is this one because they each have 1 card that is specific to them that there's only 1 of. The other cards, such as these 3 here, there are multiples of in the deck. So the heroes that we get are Iron Man. We have the Hulk. Of course, the biggest card and the best one is Hulk Smash. We have Black Widow and her cards. Then the guy who some people do believe is now her boyfriend after Infinity War, Captain America. And he's got some interesting aspects to his cards. He's definitely a team player. Like I said, we're not going to cover all the cards, but I just wanted to mention it. We also have Nick Fury. And one thing I do want to highlight about Nick Fury is this card is very interesting. He actually lets you clean up your deck and get rid of some of your weaker shield heroes to pull some of the other heroes, your stronger ones that you will have recruited during the game a lot faster. And we then, of course, have Thor. Julie's favorite to look at. I don't know if it's a long hair. I definitely don't have long hair, but she does like looking at Chris Hemsworth. And Thor's got some interesting cards as well, some that even focus more on the buying power. And then last but not least, but I did kind of leave him for last for a reason, is Hawkeye. And there's Hawkeye from the Avengers with his 4 cards. Now, we've gone over all of the different components that we have for Legendary Marvel Studios, the first 10 years, Phase 1. We'll now take a closer look at some of the villain hero cards, probably some of the bystanders as well, just a quick close-up. Then we're going to get into setup and how to play. So keep it right here, and we'll be right back. Now we're going to take a closer look at the cards that you get in Legendary Marvel Studios, the first 10 years. Now, I'm using the neoprene map because it allows me to show you some of the proper positioning of the cards. We've got the villains in the right spot, heroes in the right spot, as well as the scheme, mastermind, and where the shield officers go. Wound and bystander as well. And the reason for that is that some cards are affected by where they are on the board. The mat's going to help me explain it. Now, let's get into it. First, we're going to take a look at the 2 shield heroes. We have our 2 standard cards. We have the shield trooper with its fight value of 1, and as you can see, the purchase cost of 0 because it's in your starting deck. You've got the shield agent represented by Agent Coulson with its buying power of 1, and it costs 0. These are both shield heroes. If you see any cards or have any cards that refer to shield heroes, it's talking about these 2 cards and not your shield officer, which is represented by Maria Hill. Now, as we're talking about shield, we'll take a look at Hill. Now, she is a card that you can purchase for a cost of 3, and will give you 2 buying power or recruitment power. Now we'll look at one of the other standard cards of the wound. Now, wounds you get when you take damage, either from a result of a fight. Sometimes it's even from a hero card, or depending on what happens with the mastermind. Now, you can get rid of wounds depending on what your heroes you've recruited say, or by healing, which means you don't do anything during the round. You do not defeat any villains or recruit any heroes. Now we'll take a quick look at two of the bystanders, Happy Hogan and Pepper Potts. Now these are the special type of bystanders, so when you rescue them, something happens. For example, with Happy Hogan, when you rescue this bystander, you may KO a wound from your hand or from any player's discard pile. He lets you get rid of a wound. And when you rescue Pepper Potts, you get an extra +2 usable only to recruit heroes in the HQ under the bank. Which means that HQ, so the HQ is here, the bank is right here, which means you get an extra +2 victory points, in this case to recruit Captain America, which would be a very good thing. And I'll move the cards up just so you can actually see what it says under there. Now we've taken a look at those base cards. Let's take a look at the schemes. Now, when we're talking about the schemes, we can't help but talk about the Masterstrike, which you can see here, and the Scheme Twists. Now, you get a setup for each scheme. It tells you what to put into the deck. This will tell you it puts 8 twists in. In each twist that comes out, it will tell you what to do. So for twists 1 through 4, you just put it next to the scheme. With twists 5 through 6, each player gains a wound. Twist 7, each player gains 3 wounds. Twist 8, evil wins. Meaning that in this scenario, you need to defeat the mastermind before 8 scheme twists come out of the deck and are played. Now we'll take a look quickly at another scheme. I put 2 of them up here, so let's take a look at Invade Asgard. Now Invade Asgard is a little bit more complicated scheme. There are 7 twists. Each twist is a dark portal. So you will follow what happens for twist 1, twist 2 through 6, and twist 7. So with twist 1, you put the dark portal above the mastermind, and the mastermind gets +1 fight essentially, which is pretty difficult. Twist 2 through 6, you put the dark portal in the leftmost city space. That doesn't yet have the dark portal. Villains in that space get +1. So essentially, each of the scheme twists boosts the damage that you need to do to the villains, and at twist 7, evil wins. Now you can see there are multiple schemes that come in the game. I don't want to take too much time. We're already in by a few minutes. Let's keep moving. Now we'll take a look at the Mastermind. And the Mastermind directly deals with the Masterstrike. You need 10 fight to engage the Mastermind. The Mastermind always leads a specific enemy deck that you will add into the villain deck, which would be right here. In this case, it's Enemies of Asgard. And whenever a Masterstrike is played, each player reveals this is the melee, like your bruiser hero, largely like the Hulk. Thor's got some cards as well, or gains a wound. So Masterstrikes are ways that the Mastermind hits you. Now, when you attack the Mastermind, in this case Loki, you need 10 fight. What you then do is you will pick one of the random tactics, and when you defeat him, you then get the fight reward. In this case, is defeat a villain in the city for free. You also can notice here that when you defeat the Mastermind, you get victory points, which is noted on cards right there by the 5. And that is how the Mastermind works. We're not going to take a look at all of his tactics. Now I've got a nice set of villains out here, and no henchmen. I've got some henchmen over here we'll take a look at, but I want to talk about specifically some of the ones that have some specific abilities. So, for example, the Abomination Raging Monster. As you can see here, it says Streets Conqueror 3. And you notice it says 4+. That means when he's in the streets, he takes 7 damage. Because in the streets, he gets +3 to his fight. Also, when he enters, this is the ambush. After this enters the city, if the streets are empty, move another villain from any city space into the streets. When you draw the card to play him, he triggers an effect. Now, for example, we're looking at Enslaved Hawkeye. Once again, just a reminder, victory points are there. If you fight him and defeat him, you get to draw 3 cards. Now, we've got the Chitauri, and a lot of them have the Rooftops Conqueror, meaning they get an extra +2 when they're in the rooftop space. You can see, once again, streets, rooftops. Now, this also is an ambush. And if the rooftops are empty, reveal the top card of the villain deck. If it's a villain, that villain enters the rooftops. So the T'Challa are always going to be trying to funnel people into the rooftop. Now you've got an ambush effect as well for Thunderbolt Ross. And with Arnim Zola is worth +3 victory point for each other Hydra villain in your pile. Now that doesn't necessarily mean henchman. And we'll just take a quick look at some of the other guys here, just to give you an idea. Now we've got our typical henchmen, which are very weak. Now when you fight the henchmen, when you defeat them, when you get to draw an extra hand next turn. Raza, so whenever Raza has captured a bystander, he gets +1 for each bystander. And ambush, Raza captures a bystander from the bystander deck, which is up there. And the random bystander from each player's victory pile. So as you can see, if you've been rescuing bystanders and Raza shows up, he's not that easy to defeat. Now let's take a look at the hero cards themselves. Now just because it's our main guys, I wanted to just show you Iron Man and Captain America. We'll take a look at the repulsor rays and just give you an idea of how you combo stuff together. So blue stands for ranged. And you see this is the fight for this is 2+. So if you're another range card, you get an extra +1 fight. That's a little bit how it works together. Now we've got the Endless Invention Iron Man. So you've got your tech symbol up there. So you get to draw a card, and if you've got another, when you play this, and if you have another tech card that you play that turn, you get to draw another card. Now I wanted to show you guys Avengers Assemble because this is very interesting. You get +1 recruitment star for each different color of hero you have, including gray, meaning that when you play this card, if, for example, you had, yellow, blue, your dark black, your gray, that's an extra 4 buying power off of this one card. And let's not spend too much more time on these guys. Let's take a look at the individual card, the one that there is only one of. So as you can see, they cost a lot to buy, 7. And I forgot to mention the purchase cost and recruitment cost of each hero is along the bottom there. So when you play the Iron Man card, the Quantum Breakthrough, you get to draw 2 cards and draw 2 more cards if, for example, you had the Endless Invention played on the same turn. Now when you're looking at Captain America, this is a fight card, costs 7. So this is the Avenger symbol. You notice at the top, that means he's an Avenger. This is also stands for the Team Avenger, Avenger, Avenger. Now for this base game, pretty much all heroes are Avengers. If you do add in other heroes from the comic book version of the game, you may end up with X-Men and things like that. But the bonus you get for Captain America is you get +3 fight for each other Avenger hero you played this turn. Meaning if you played this card and Quantum Breakthrough, well, this is no longer 3+, it is a 6. And if you happen to play another Avengers hero like Thor or Hulk, it could get even stronger than that. Now we've taken a quick look at the cards themselves. We're going to go through the setup and how to play. So we'll show you how to use this lovely board. Keep it right here, and we'll be right back. Now we're going to take a look at how you set up Legendary Marvel Studios the first 10 years. So I've taken out everything that I'm going to need for the 2-player setup as per the tutorial, what is recommended for the first mission. We have our villains that we're going to need down here. And when you're doing a 2-player setup, you have your mastermind, you have 2 villain groups, which are the enemies of Asgard and Hydra, and 1 group of henchmen. Now we'll set up the board and show you what we got to do. Now the first thing you're going to set up is the scheme. In the case of the first one, it's Unleash the Power of the Cosmic Cube. This will identify how many scheme twists you need and any other special setup rules. Now the scheme is placed here on the top of the board. You will then take the required scheme twists, which are a total of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to put them right here just to get them ready. And we're also going to need 5 Master Strikes. And these are all going to be part of the villain deck. Now we've got our Mastermind, which is the Red Skull. The Mastermind takes this position. Now their 4 tactic cards, which represent the 4 times you have to defeat them, are flipped upside down and shuffled, and they will be drawn randomly when a hero engages the mastermind. We're now going to create the villain deck, which is our villain groups, henchman group, and the appropriate amount of bystanders as per the setup rules. We then take the master strikes as well as the scheme twists, and we shuffle it all together. And this is going to become our villain deck. Now I'll do a little bit more shuffling before we teach you guys how to play off camera. Don't want to take too much time here with the setup, and they are placed right there. Now we take our shield officers. They are placed underneath the mastermind, and we are always able to recruit them. Now for our starting deck, each hero is going to have their shield agents, which is a total of 6 shield agents and 3 troopers. And that is going to form the starting player deck, which will shuffle up. And I'm just going to leave one deck here. I'm not going to set up the second player deck. We will get that done during some off-camera time, just not to waste too much time. The wounds, which we've placed right here, are set up at the top here. The bystanders take up this position. We then have the 5 heroes that we have selected. And for this mission, I've selected Hulk, Black Widow, Captain America, Thor, and of course, Iron Man, the guy that started it all. Now, we take the hero cards. We will also shuffle them together. And I'm going to do a little bit better job just for the course of the setup, because you're going to want to see your hero HQ. They're then placed in the starting position, and you will draw the top 5 hero cards. And these are the starting heroes that you're able to recruit. Now, we've gone over the setup for Legendary Marvel Studios the first 10 years. What we're going to do is we're going to go through 3 turns with regards to how to play. And then if we don't cover everything like hitting the mastermind or what happens when a bystander, or good bystanders over there, enter the fray, well, I will just add a little aside to that, and then we'll get to our review of the game. So keep it right here. We're coming back in a flash. Now let's play Legendary Marvel Studios the first 10 years. Now I'm just going to highlight a mistake that I made during the setup. It is actually a total of 12 cards per each starting player's hand. It is 8 shield agents and 4 shield troopers. So I did correct that on the video, but I want to do it on camera as well. And let's play. Now the first thing we're going to do is flip over the villain for player 1's turn and draw player 1's starting hand, which is 6 cards. So we start with Arnim Zola, and we don't have anything but shield agents, meaning we are only able to purchase cards, and we have a total value of 6, which does gives us some nice options here. And just so you can see with Arnim Zola, there is no special condition, there's no ambush, nothing for fight. He's just worth more victory points. And as you can see from the corner there, it says 3+. Now, what we can buy is we can buy the diving block to get some very good fight and attack right off the bat. We also have the same thing with Hulk. Now, the Hulk card can work in conjunction with the Odin Sun, which as you can see right here, when you're playing another one of the green cards, you get an extra +2 buying power. That's why this one is worth 2+. We also have Black Widow, but I like Captain America. We're full of Coulson. We're going to purchase the diving block, and that will now go into our discard pile. And we would then essentially redraw our hand, which is going to be just the next 6 cards. And I'll flip that over so you guys are able to see it. And you can kind of think about what I should do a little bit. And we'll move on to player 2. Now, player 2 gets there. And don't forget, you need to redraw a card and place it in the middle. Player 2 gets their 6 cards. We'll take a quick look. As well, it's also nothing but shield. We will move our villain through, and we flip over the next card. It's a bystander. Now, when a bystander shows up out of the deck, they are then captured by the villain, so the villain does not advance, and whoever defeats the villain will gain that bystander. Now, as we once again have just these 6 shield agents, what would we like to do? I want to maximize my purchasing and show you guys a little bit more of the cards that are available. We will actually pick up Odin's Son and Dangerous Rescue. We will then place 2 more cards into center. And we'll now go back to player 1's turn. I'll just flip over the last 6 cards. They're going to be identical to what player 1 had, and that is player 2's upcoming hand. Let's try to get a little less glare. Now, we are on the 2nd turn. So, you know what? Just to keep it a little bit more manageable for you guys, I'm going to cut right here, and we'll be right back with the 2nd turn in a moment. And we're back with turn 2. We already know what player 1 has. We can see what player 2 has. And let's see what the villain is. So we'll tentatively slide Arnim Zola up. Let's reveal. And we've got Laufey, Frost Giant King. Man, we're just getting all the big bads right off the bat. Now, when you're looking at the hand, I have 2 purchase power with the shield agent and a total of 4 fight, 4 attack. Now, we can only battle at 6. And it's a minimum of 3 for recruitment, which means this turn, there's absolutely nothing we can do. So player 1 actually does not accomplish anything. Now, if there had been a wound in my hand, per se, in this scenario, as you're able to heal wounds if you don't attack or recruit anyone, this would be the perfect time to have healed it. So we're shuffling up our deck. And we will move on to player 2. We'll slide the villains down the track, flip over another card, and luckily we've got something we might be able to actually use to defeat the 10 Rings Fanatics. Now we have 4 fight and 2 purchasing power. So unfortunately, once again, everything is minimum of 3. These guys are a waste. And we will play our 4 fight and defeat the 10 Rings Fanatics. And you'll notice that when we defeat them, it says KO one of your heroes. Now, shield agents are considered heroes, so are the shield troopers. Now, KOing them means they are then removed from the game. This villain that I've defeated would stay in front of me. I'll just put him right here for now as victory points. And I'm going to KO. I've got some extra purchasing power, but I will KO a shield agent. The KO piles are going to go right up here, meaning it's knocked out of the game. And I'm actually slimming down my deck, which is a very good thing. Let's put that over here for now. And player 2 is going to reshuffle their hand. And we've bought a little bit of time. Arnim Zola and Laufey aren't going to be moving ahead. And we will come back with turn 3. So as you can see, the game moves rather quickly when you know what you're doing. Keep it right here. We're coming back soon. Now we're coming back with turn 3, and this is the last turn I'm going to do as a playthrough. We may actually film a full playthrough of Legendary at some point. Draw 6 cards. And we will see what we got. Oh, nice. We've got maybe a chance at doing some damage. We've got 4 buying power and a total of 5 fight. Let's draw the villain. And we have the Endless Armies of Hydra, meaning that when we fight them, we have to play the top 2 cards of the villain deck, which is not great, but we don't have a lot of options. Now with the purchasing power of 4, I want to get some Hulk cards. I really do like this card. It lets you KO a wound from your hand, and we might be getting into a situation where we'll get some wounds. I'll buy the Unstoppable Hulk. I'll play Diving Block. And notice there's a special ability with this, is that if you would gain a wound, you may reveal this card and draw a card instead. You can use to protect you for wounds. So with the 5 fight, I will defeat the endless armies of Hydra, get myself some victory points for player 1. But we do have to do what the fight card says and draw the next top two cards from the villain deck. We now have a Hydra motorcycle squad in play and a Hydra tank. Now, that may not have been the smartest thing that we've done. We are having villains getting close to escaping from the city. And now, depending on the scheme that you're trying to defeat, the amount of villains that escape can cause you to lose the game. Check your scheme. Check the rules just to confirm. This was really more to show you guys how to play. And as we're moving on to player 2's turn, let's redraw. And we've got another Unstoppable Hulk. Now we'll draw player 2's 6 cards. 4, 5, 6. All right, let's take a look. And we really don't have enough fight. We've got only the 4 buying power. In this case, want to do something different. Don't want to necessarily get all the same things as the same hero. And these 2 fight are expired. We then draw another card, Captain America, not bad. And then we would move on to the next turn. Now you can see how the game would progress. What I'm going to do right now is I will pull some cards out, set up a hand, and we'll discuss what happens with the bystanders and the mastermind. I'm not going to reset the board. I'm just going to change what the players have in their hands. So keep it right here, and we'll be right back. I've gone ahead and cleaned some stuff up just a little bit. Now we're going to take a look at what would happen if I had all these great cards and was able to do some massive attacks. We're going to talk about bystanders and attacking the mastermind. Now I'll just put this down right here in front. Then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the scheme twists and the master strikes before we get into our review. Now the one thing I didn't do last time is, just so you know, when you fight these guys, they have some different effects. Each player without another Hydra villain in their victory pile gains a wound. So as you can see, the game is competitive, cooperative. You are able to give wounds to other players. And then the Hydra motorcycle squad fight, you may gain a shield officer, meaning you could have recruited Maria Hill. All right, so we've caught up with turn 3 for those of you watching the whole video. Now let's take a look at this god hand I've got right now and see what we can do. Now we've got Diving Block, which is a total of 4 damage. We have the Unstoppable Hulk, which if I had any wounds would actually make this total of 4 damage, so it's only worth 2. Now we've got Call Lightning right here, which as you see, when you have a range, you get an extra 3 attack, meaning that this one is worth 3. And so you've got the Repulsor Rays, it's worth 6. This is 2 plus, this is worth a total of 9. And there we have Crazed Rampage, each player gets a wound. But if you have your nice Hulk Smash right here, for every one of the Brute cards here, or I like to just call them the Hulky cards because that's really what they're based on, you get an extra plus 5, meaning this is 10 for a total of 14 damage. Now we've got a bunch of stuff that we can do. Now these cards here are worth 14, meaning you can hit the Red Skull twice. Here we've got a total of 6, meaning we can free a bystander. And here we actually have a total of 9, meaning we can hit the Red Skull again. Now let's take a look at what would happen. Now we defeat Arnim Zola per se. Arnim Zola goes into our victory pile as well as the bystander. Now for those of you wondering why the bystanders are there, depending on the scheme and also depending on some of the villains, they may capture bystanders. And as you can see also on the villain cards, there is the escape effect. Sometimes the villain escapes the city, meaning he moves off the board. you have an effect which may be the same as the fight effect. Now, getting back just quickly to the mastermind here, let's see what happens if we fight the red skull. Now, the red skull we have to fight of 7. What you then do is pick one of his cards, and then you see what happens. Fight, well, you get +3 fight that you can use for something else. So in this scenario, we fought the red skull as the nerve blast grenades. Well, I can also use it to defeat a Hydra motorcycle squad. And this then also goes in your victory pile. Now, as we had so much fight, we can keep going, essentially. Now, this one you get an extra +4 buying power, meaning this goes in my victory pile. And just say we spent these, and this will be my discard. I have +4. I could then just say pick up another repulsor blast right there. And as from what we discussed, I had another chance to fight. Well, let's fight. Let's see what happens. Fight. Draw 2 cards and draw another card for each Hydra villain in your victory pile. Meaning I can draw more cards and keep attacking. I'm not going to do that. I wanted to keep this in some manageable chunks. We're going to put this back. So as you can see, when you get the right, very powerful hand, you can keep attacking a ton. Now, we haven't taken a look at the Master Strikes and the Scheme Twists. Keep it right here. We'll come back with those, and then we'll get to our review of the game. Now, as you've noticed, I've not set up the other player again. I'm not really going to be drawing any cards. I just want to go from where we were and go over the Scheme Twists and the Master Strike. Now, when you draw from the villain deck and you get a Master Strike, what a Master Strike is, you will follow the Mastermind cards. It says each player can use a hero from their hand. Now, I will then put just the Master Strike up here, or it can go here. Doesn't really matter. I will draw my hand of 6 cards. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, what I then have to do is KO a hero from my hand. Now, Shield Agents and Shield Troopers count. They would then be discarded into the KO pile at the top there. Now, I'm just going to put this down over here as we don't need it. Now we'll look at if I happen to draw a Scheme Twist. Now, once again, like the Master Strike, nothing happens in the city. With the Scheme Twist, you put it up here at the top, and then you will follow what happens on the card. So the setup is 8 twists. You put the twist next to the scheme. Nothing happens until twist 5 and 6, and then different things happen. So for example, on 5 and 6, each player gains a wound. Twist 7, each player gains 3 wounds. And at twist 8, evil wins. Now you're going to keep drawing through the deck, and basically the twist means the evil mastermind is getting closer to completing their plot. They're trying something a little bit different, but it's not necessarily a bad thing for the heroes because you might not have villains. Essentially, escape from the city, which means you're not able to defeat them, and can have some negative consequences for the players, especially depending on the effect on the card. Like for example, this one here, escape, each player reveals a ranged hero or gains a wound. That's what escape same effect means. It means the same effect as what happens when somebody fights them. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time clarifying what happens when villains escape because it differs based on the scenarios. It's not always the same. And now that we've got that covered, let's move on to a review of the game, and we'll talk about Legendary. Keep it right here. We're going to be swinging at you just like Spider-Man, but a little bit faster, I think. Stay tuned. Legendary. Marvel Studios, the first 10 years. That's quite a mouthful. We're doing it right, though. Julie, tell everyone what you thought about this game, this deck building game.
Well, yes, so it's a deck building game. I did enjoy it. It's cooperative, another reason to enjoy it, with a little bit of competitiveness, which I like as well, but no in-your-face competitiveness. This is one of these times where the IP adds more to the game for me. I enjoyed the mechanics of the game and the way it played, but seeing the stills from the movies, seeing, Chris Hemsworth as Thor, they really added to the game for me.
Because we did have the opportunity to play when it was the comic book version, but you didn't seem all that interested in it.
The game was good. but I didn't get as much out of the IP. So for me, this is probably one of the better ways. The X-Files one, can't wait. That being said, I really did enjoy it. We played it as a 5-version game. It took a lot longer. I think, as you were saying, it's probably about 15 minutes per player.
Yeah, I think about 15 minutes per player. So if you're playing 5 players, it could easily go over that 1 hour mark. Just depends on how well people know the game, of course. If people are quick on their turns, which they can be, could go very fast.
It also depends. It adds a little bit of a dynamic. It makes it a little bit more difficult to get the cards that you want because there's 4 other players before, or up to 4 other players before you get your shot at the card, and it doesn't necessarily mean you'll get it based on what you pull. So when we were playing, you had a fairly experienced group of people playing the game. But we were diluting our efforts a little bit, and it felt like we were never going to beat the villain. But then, it just turned out that, Sammy G pulled that card and was able to actually beat the villain the 3 extra times that we needed in one hand.
Wow. So that's quite the victory.
That's a little disappointing in the sense of when you're playing to have one player pull out that one hand that allows them to beat, 3 rounds of the game. That being said, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed us playing together. It's a little bit quicker. There's a little bit more of an aspect of being able to build the
deck that you want.
The deck that we want.
It's a little bit more cooperation because you really built your nice Hulk deck, and I was more focused on Iron Man, but also more ranged characters, which let me get a lot of nice big hits. So while I was beating up the Mastermind, you were cleaning up the villains.
So what would you add?
No, so what I would say is I really enjoyed this game. Now, I've played the comic book version, and I've now played the MCU version, and just because of how much I like the MCU, and it means a little bit more to me than the comics now, because it's something that we also do together. I really like this version. I also found that this is a great starting point for people that want to jump into Legendary, especially Marvel Legendary. Now, you can get the comic book version. They are very much the same game with the same mechanics. I'm not trying to push some person like one way or the other. We actually also have the Spider-Man Homecoming expansion, which we'll do a separate review of. But for us, having the MCU and being able to sort of start fresh with Legendary, I think it's just a really good way to get into the game. I like the mechanics. The deck building, I think, is very well done. The way that the cards chain together, like getting a lot of range cards, and also like the different, like the tech cards. Then you also have your more strength and melee cards. All the different aspects works well, and I really like how Captain America's cards work, where you can get a lot of extra buying power. And then we didn't get to play with those cards, but there's some really nice boosts for having the different Avengers heroes. And that's where I think Legendary excels in terms of deck building, is the combinations that you can do, and you're never really limited to like one hero or another. You do definitely get benefits for focusing on one, but if you want to go, let's say, ranged, that's valuable, and you don't need to just necessarily go with like Iron Man. You could go with like Hawkeye and Thor's ranged cards as well. I think it's a very good game. You can tell that Upper Deck's been putting it out for a long time, and the mechanics are very well refined. And I think I'd probably give it a score of, I'm going to give this a really high score. I give this one an 8.5. I really like this game, and for us playing it 2 players, the fact that it plays so quickly means that it gets a little bit of a boost, because I can take this out, I can set this up, and we can almost tear it down in an hour, and it's been a fun activity where we're not sitting in front of the TV.
So I think this is going to be my first one. I'm going to give it a 9.
Wow.
For the mechanics, the way it plays, the use of the IP, the things that you mentioned as well, the ease of setup. I could play this game often. I really enjoy playing it, and I think I've been pushing you a little bit since we played with our friends a week ago.
A week ago, you've been like, let's take on Legendary.
So I really enjoy it for a game. I mean, you've talked about it. I also like games like Descent that are a little bit longer and more drawn out, a little bit more strategy. This game I really enjoyed for the speed, but there's still a little bit of strategy involved in it as well. So.
Yep, and one thing we didn't touch on is the competitive element. And before we take it out, I just want to cover that as well. I do like the competitive element. Now, the one thing I will say is I've had experiences with the competitive element that proved to be a detriment to the game, where if one player really just sort of looks out for themselves, it can be like a negative experience, I find, for the group. So that's just something to keep in mind, because I like looking at it more as a cooperative game, like the team wins. It is nice to sort of track who does better, but if one person's like, well, I'm getting all the best heroes, or seeds the deck with heroes that they really like, and that's a problem I think more in the comic book version of the game, less in the MCU version if you're just focusing on the MCU cards, because you really only have this box and Spider-Man Homecoming for right now. So
we can,
keep that in mind.
and you can also let out completely that leave out completely the competitive aspect if you want, because you're just basically tracking victory points, and you could choose not to track the victory points.
You'll still need to track the things like the bystanders and the villains, because some cards require you to interact with those things, but it doesn't have to be a detriment to the game. Now, with that being said, you guys should be seeing stuff popping up over our heads. For those of you that ever come back to this video, it will be changing. This is the first Legendary video that we're doing. So as we cover other versions of Legendary, those will probably pop up over our heads instead of other things. You can also find information on all our social media feeds down below in the video description. And with that being said, on Dice and Dragons, as we always do, grab our drinks, grab our buddies or our favorite Avenger, and keep playing games.
Keep playing games.
You really didn't pick as many Thor cards as I thought you would, though.
That's because I started off with some Hulk, and there is some strategy to it as well. I had to keep building some. They weren't coming up.
Or maybe you just think Mark Ruffalo is cuter than Chris Hemsworth. I don't know.
No. Sorry.
You prefer your Pirate Angel?
He's cute.